Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's Reddit stories are from Malicious Compliance. Story 1 is by Mandanity. Opa's Potatoes. When I was a little girl, I was pretty sickly. I often was sent home early from school with fevers caused by tonsillitis or strep throat. One day when I was about 7, I had a fever and I had to be sent home again. My mother was unable to come get me, so she asked her father, my Opa, to do it. This was an unusual circumstance. Opa was a mean old jerk, and no one in the family really liked him. He was a hard German war veteran who didn't mind slapping kids around or scaring the bejesus out of them. He took me back to his house and told me to start helping him make dinner even though I was sick. We were going to make split pea soup and I needed to start by washing and peeling potatoes for him. I put the potatoes in a bowl, filled it with water, and started scrubbing. He was sitting on a kitchen chair with a colander in his lap, not particularly paying attention to what I was doing, and told me to pour the potatoes into the colander so I could get started with washing them. I looked back at my bowl of potatoes submerged in dirty water and said, "Opa, that's not a good idea." Opa, who never liked to be told what is and isn't a good idea, screamed at me to put the potatoes in the effing colander, motioning to the very colander sitting in his lap. I had a choice to make. I could explain the situation and avoid the fiasco, or I could just do exactly what he told me to do. So I shrugged and said, "Okay," and dumped the entire bowl of potatoes and dirty water into the colander. As I'm sure you can all imagine, the cold, dirty water spilled all over that mean old curmudgeon and his kitchen floor. Opa sat there, dumbfounded and covered in dirty potato water, for what felt like hours. I stood there, stupidly gawking in front of him in horror, the now empty bowl still upside down in my hands. Then he did what I never would have expected and started laughing. Somehow that was far more terrifying than if he exploded like I expected him to. He told me to clean up the mess and get out of his sight. And that's the story of my plucky, albeit foolish, malicious compliance and possibly my first brush with death. Ha ha ha. Old war veterans like this are always ornery old folks, with good reason. They've seen a lot of bad stuff in their life. An old German war vet, I can only imagine he's got to be so stoic and kind of snappy. I'm glad you survived, OP. One of the top comments below is, "Being mean is not the same as being stupid. He understood why it happened and who was at fault. The fact that you complied exactly the same way a soldier would have is probably what got him." Our next post is by Leela Adams. I will report every bathroom break, of course. So, several years ago, I worked for the worst boss ever. I was working as a teacher at a preschool. I had 28 students in my class, ages 4 to 5. I had no assistant at any time of the day, so this meant I had to do quite a lot of tasks all at once by myself. One of these things were bathroom breaks. The bathroom had a half wall, boys on one side and girls on the other. This way, the teacher could supervise all learners at once. I had a very well-oiled routine with my class at bathroom breaks. I'll explain in detail here. If you don't want to read, skip to the next paragraph. So I had 2 lines, boys and girls. They lined up at opposite sides so they could not see into the other toilet. Kids go in 4 at a time. Once you're done, you sit on the floor in the doorway until everyone is done. This way I could keep my eyes on almost every child at all times. The doors were always open so I could run out if I needed. I jumped over the half wall if needed. And basically, I had everyone within a few meters of myself. This entire routine took around 10 minutes. I did my routine once every hour. Kids could go to the bathroom by themselves in between bathroom breaks. There were no issues. My boss comes shouting into my class one day, "A girl in my class has had an accident. She wet herself while on her way to the bathroom." My boss shouted about this girl wetting her pants in front of all my students who were having free play. The kids were all silent. She screamed at me, and I tried to explain that she was on her way, she just didn't make it, and our next bathroom break was in 10 minutes. She continued shouting at me. I waited for her to finish screaming and asked if the child who wet herself had been helped to change. She says, no, I have to go do it. I cannot leave my learners unsupervised, so I ask if she could just please keep an eye on my class while I change the student into dry clothes. She looks me in the eye and says, no, your whole class is having a bathroom break now. And from now on, you go every 20 minutes. Bathroom break. The whole class, every 20 minutes. I just nodded my head and told my learners, pack up time. She said to leave the class as it is and go to the bathroom. The kids line up at the class door. Then we walk outside a few meters to the lockers. We line up again while I collect new clothes. Then we walk to the bathroom and do the same routine as above, plus I need to change my student into drier clothes. It was a nightmare. I checked the clock when we left and made a mental note to come back in 20 minutes. And I did. Every 20 minutes. The problem is the bathrooms get cleaned every 30 minutes, so oftentimes we would have to wait outside because the bathroom was wet. Other classes needed to use the toilet, but we were constantly in there. We walked to the toilet and just walked back if no one said they needed the bathroom. By the end of the day, they were so sick of going to the toilet, 1 p.m.-ish. The next morning, we continued the routine. That meant that sometimes parents came to drop off and there was no one to welcome them or watch their child. Or that the parents were still trying to do a handover, and then it's been 20 minutes, so it's time for a bathroom break. We started our morning circle ring and went to the bathroom. We read a story and went to the bathroom. We had free play and then bathroom. Every 20 minutes. Everyone in that school was so annoyed with me. Everyone knew it was ridiculous, but I told them that's what the boss lady said to do. That afternoon, a schedule was sent out as to when every class may use the bathroom, scheduling the bathroom breaks and cleaning breaks for all the classes. And wouldn't you know it, my class was scheduled for once every 60 minutes. Ha! Taking little tiny kids to the bathroom is so not fun. I had to do that a few times with some of the younger kids at a school once. Like taking some of the kids from the playground into the school to the bathroom. I didn't really work with the really, really young ones all the time, but I just feel strange taking a little kid to the bathroom. Like, it's something we take for granted. We just know how to do it. We must have learned from a teacher or a parent at some point how to do all these things. Yeah, it's terrible that the principal yelled at you in front of your entire class and that she didn't change the little girl. So the girl was like covered in pee, and she's probably not even embarrassed about it because she's so young, she doesn't care. None of the other kids care, but she's still covered in pee, and that's gross. She should have taken her to get cleaned up and then talked to you afterwards if she had such an issue with what you were doing. It sounds like you were doing it flawlessly. It's like she wanted to be mad at somebody. Top comments below by Tekuzo says, after reading the entire story, the one thing that sticks with me is how incredibly inappropriate it is to give a dressing down to an employee in front of children, much less yelling. Did any of the parents complain about their children potentially being traumatized? Especially the poor girl that had the incident. There's no need to call attention to that. Underneath that, by the Filthy Dill, she'll remember it for the rest of her life, and quite possibly so will her classmates. When I was in first grade, a similar incident happened. The principal, a grade A gold-plated piece of work meaner than cat poop, had taken over the class for a while and issued busy work. One little girl was too scared of him to ask to go to the restroom, so she eventually peed her pants. He chewed that poor girl up one side and down the other, sent her home saying that she had to wear a diaper to come back to class. That was more than 60 years ago and didn't even happen to me, but I've never forgotten it. Isn't that true, though? It seems like most of the bad things that happen in your life really stick with you. Any of the bad things that happen in any situation, you remember them a whole lot more than you remember a lot of the good things. Our next story is by Loose Wayne, with X's around it. New purse check rule absolutely mandatory. I work 3 jobs. The hours and days vary. My full-time job is in an office space on a very fancy modern office with a great company. They have some great amenities on site too, a full gym, lockers and showers, full cafeteria, etc. My second job is close to full-time, depending on other employees' availability, so no set schedule, very chaotic and not very well ran. It's a boutique, just a bus ride from my office, and it's all in a very busy downtown tourist port city by the ocean. The thing is, it's a tourist boutique. It's all city-branded trinkets, shirts, postcards, and gifts. There's really not much any locals would want unless buying it for out-of-town family. My third job is at a fast food place. I'm often between these two jobs and don't have time to run home in between. I carry a gym bag with me, with my tiny purse/wallet inside, along with clean business professional clothes, gym clothes, and work uniforms to change in and out of. Extra underwear, it's summer and extremely hot, and our buses don't usually even have AC, so if there's time, I'll shower at the office and I have travel-size shower items. A book for the bus rides, I don't have a car, lunch and snacks, hairbrush. Apparently the boutique has experienced a lot of loss, something we had previously brought up being an issue because our boss, the owner, will have big tables and buckets of items outside by the side of the door where we can't monitor them, especially if we're inside with customers. People definitely take advantage, and we've seen a lot of people grab things and just take off. These aren't the cheaper items in the store either. We've lost an entire display of mid-priced sunglasses, handfuls of bikini separates, and at one point the entire table was emptied in a snatch and run with about 5 younger people. But he thinks it's us stealing things. His wife runs the store, she's always in. She said we have a new mandatory bag check, and every employee in the store is a woman who usually carries a purse or bag. It's not just a quick look through the bag. She wants to remove the items and feel around the sides of the bag and make sure we aren't taking any trinkets and items. I'll be honest, I haven't seen anybody on staff, there are 4 of us, ever steal anything. And I don't even think it's because they're all stand-up employees. I think it's because they don't care to own any of the cheap, tacky tourist items. Because my bag is bigger, it's been kind of a nightmare for me. She wants me to take every individual item out of my bag and show there's nothing wrapped up inside of it, lay it out across the table by the register. The first day of this, I was late to work because she wouldn't start checking my bag until I clocked out, and then she took her time with a customer, causing me to be almost a half hour late to my other job. I considered that I could just continue getting lockers at my office, but they're day use only, so depending on my schedule, I'd have to make a separate trip to get back to the office before the building closed to remove my items, and it wouldn't be feasible with my other jobs. I'm honestly pretty sure the staff who cleans the lockers at the end of the day probably wouldn't mind and would work something out for me, but I don't feel like I need to go out of my way to keep a steady rotation on a locker. If my boutique manager wants to make things awkward and difficult on me, I'm going to turn around and do it right back to her. She is a very tightly wound conservative lady, so I added a few extra items to my gym bag. I don't get my period, but I picked up a menstrual cup. Period talk makes her absolutely faint. I included some new reading material, old 70s Playboys I keep at the house for aesthetic purposes, and I just like them. I swapped in some of my sexiest and functionally impossible underwear, but also one of my granniest of panties. I also, for no reason at all, included condoms, furry handcuffs, a gag gift at my sister's bachelorette party, and I picked up a pamphlet at a nearby community center for their group therapy for bereavement. It went off perfectly at the end of my shift. There were customers in the store, and she made me go through my bag, item by item, opening them up and holding it so she could check to make sure there was nothing hidden. I carefully fanned out my old magazines to show there was nothing between the pages. I pulled out each set of panties like a creepy fashion show, holding them up to the light so she could see directly through the lace. Every item we pulled out of the gym bag made her more and more flush. She was uncomfortable. She could barely perform the check. She nearly had a panic attack when I pulled out the little sandwich baggie with a menstrual cup in it. I even pulled out the pamphlet and set it aside slowly with the intent to seem affected by it. And she looked at me quizzically and kind of confused and asked what this is about, and I solemnly said, "Oh, I haven't lost anybody, but it's a great place to meet new people." I pulled the condoms out right after saying that. My second bag check was definitely faster than the first, and I finished and was out the door in time to catch a bus and arrive to my work actually early. Speed running the bag check wasn't my initial plan, but it was definitely an unconsidered plus to the situation. I honestly don't mind doing a bag check if they really feel like it's necessary, but the invasiveness of making every employee pull everything out in their bags on a table, where every customer in the store has plain view of everything, is a little much. And purposefully making it take so much time that it's interfering with our other jobs and personal lives is crossing the line. But now I'm kind of excited to see what other items I can include in my gym bag just to keep her on her toes. I don't want it to be too obvious, but just enough to make her consider that a lady's bag is usually private, and upending that for all our customers to see might not be great for business. Top comment below by Stu Bidizal. The pamphlet and condom combo was pure gold. One more comment by Kiwi Muzz says bag checks should not be done after you clock out. If it's a mandatory requirement, then they must pay you for your time. I would recommend to pack a teddy bear, a whip, and a self-help book on anger management. That one got lots of upvotes too. Most of the comments that replied to OP in this were suggesting naughty and really creepy things that she could include in her gym bag. Really goes to show you how many twisted minds there are in the world. But hey, it's epic. If they want to be such jerks and accuse their staff of stealing, malicious compliance is the only way to get back at them. Since this employee says that people have been stealing things like outside the store that they can't monitor, I can't wait for them to check their bag for a full month and then see that they're still having losses, and then they have to actually admit there's a problem and it's not the staff. Today's stories have come to a close. Until we meet again, have a perfect day.